Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. How you guys doing? That's basically it. I mean, look, we had a patch this week. Got a lot to talk about. Weather's getting nicer, so I'm in a tank top again.
That's basically it. Oh, we had a huge patch. It affected everything. The button was pushed. Although it's also complaints on Arena HS, and I had to laugh because I avoided the arena until Friday. The button was pushed on Tuesday, and it's explicitly because every time they push the button from the initial unbalanced meta, you're gonna have a lot of people with these really outrageous Demon Hunter decks, while everything else is balanced. Right? So if you start a new deck, you're going to have a balanced one, but that means there's just this class of like overpowered decks that exist that you can't get anymore. So it's even more unfair compared to before when you just didn't roll the right, quote unquote, right class and you couldn't get. So they don't do a reset or anything like that when they push the button and do the offering odds adjust. So you're going to see these in the meta kind of like forever. And if you stream, you're going to get sniped by them kind of like forever, and it's terrible. But at least after the first few days, you see them less often if you're just like playing regularly. So if you checked into the meta and you're like, what the hell's happening? And then you like kind of didn't play again after the first couple days, come back. It's a lot better now, as it always is after every meta.
Yep. We're definitely going to be talking about Arena and some BGs because there's changes to both. First, we want to talk about some stuff that's been happening on Twitter, on the Hearthstone subreddit, and on various streams. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Here's basically what happened. Recently, Blizzard announced a $100,000 invitational for 20 players. People noticed that only 2 out of the 20 players were women, and this is just the latest invitational where women made up approximately 10% of the total roster. Following that, there was outcry by many prominent female streamers, and it was highlighted by Slissa's stream where she laid out why this is problematic for an invitational tournament. And this was further followed by support and personal stories and anecdotes from many females in the industry, including Cora, who's a Hearthstone dev, Gia, who is a caster, along with many streamers such as Slissa, Sunglitters, Nicolina, Patra.
I want to highlight this Cora thing. Literally a Hearthstone developer. Right now. Not like an ex-developer, not like whatever, just a Hearthstone developer. Talking about, not specifically about this, but in the same vein as what's being talked about. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I encourage you guys to go watch Slissa's VOD.
Mm-hmm.
It's also on her YouTube. They pulled it and put it on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, I would recommend you
many tweets.
There's so many tweets about a lot of stories that have come out about past experiences and prejudices. It gets pretty dark. I mean, there have been death threats, rape threats, along with the general discredit of accomplishments and everything. But one of the things that was pretty disappointing to see is if you go on the Hearthstone subreddit and you see the threads that are talking about this, people just don't seem to get it. People just don't really seem to understand kind of what is being talked about. And then some people don't even watch the videos. And it's just not that surprising, I guess. I think so little of the general Hearthstone community, not anyone that, listens to the podcast, of course. You guys are all lovely people, with the exception of 1 or 2 people. And if you think, am I that person? You are definitely that person. But I think it also just goes to highlight just how kind of bad the community is. It's part of the reason why I don't really engage with like the general Hearthstone community.
You don't really engage.
You don't engage in anything, period. You don't talk to like the people that watch us. When they are watching us, you don't talk to them.
I check in now and then with people who are watching us, but like it's a video game community, right? And Hearthstone is not just it's not immune or particularly significantly better than other video game communities with a lot of stuff. And we try, right? Whenever you get to a small community, you kind of you get a little more. It gets a little more reflective of the streamer, right, and their attitudes
Yeah.
and whatever. So like our little bubble is like better than the overall Hearthstone like bubble, and especially the same, right? You go to like Slissa's chat or like Hafu's chat, and it's so much better. But the overall community it's still a video game.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, like part number one of sort of solving the problems, in which if you read all of their tweets, it's hard for you to not recognize that there is a problem. It's like,
And I think
wow.
that's the most important part. I think like
Yeah.
everybody, if you're like whether you're just trying to figure out what's going on, and we're not going to do a good job explaining it. We're not going to put a lot of time into explaining it because this is really something that you should hear from the women involved and the women that are affected by this. Like, go watch Lissa's video, go read the tweets. The tweets are like, I mean, they're long for tweets, but they're short because they're tweets. And it really paints quite a good picture of what's been happening for freaking ever. And we knew about it to like in the broad strokes, not the specifics necessarily. And most people in the Hearthstone community know about it. And most people in the Hearthstone community know that most other people in the Hearthstone community don't really believe or think it's a problem. So it's kind of been like I really like that it's all out in the open now and being highlighted, but it's not really anything new.
Yeah, it's not anything new, which also makes it sadder, I guess, in some ways. There were two things I wanted to address, mainly because you and I, we talked about the Black Lives Matter protests before, and then we've talked about other social issues, sometimes on the podcast, but a lot of times off.
Mm-hmm.
And like the things I'm seeing right now definitely draw some parallels to kind of the issues that we talked about before as well. I mean, representation, kind of toxicity towards any sort of minority group, a lot of the themes are very similar, right? So, like, one of the things that I see, and this is beyond just the invitational thing. Like, I think some people on the thread are talking about it's like, oh, about the invitational. And then some people are just talking about sort of like attitude towards
Yeah,
women in
women in
gaming.
gaming in general.
Yeah, and it's important to separate that because man, that
Mm-hmm.
those threads are just like people don't even know what they're arguing against a lot of times. But as to the general like the statement that a lot of people are making, it's like, well, Blizzard can't. It's like women just don't play the game. Period. Right? It's like if it's about representation, women, there's nothing stopping them from playing. Just play the game, forehead, or don't play the game. It's up to them. Like they could download it, they could play it. Um, and it's sort of like, well, why? Is it because they're not feeling comfortable? And it's getting close to the argument that these people are making. It's like they just don't play the game, period. When you see the arguments against integration of Black players in baseball, like 60, 70 years ago, there were no specific rules against Black players like entering the league. And a lot of people in the general public are just like, well, Black players just don't play baseball. They just don't. Like they, and if they do, it's like, well, yeah, they can come in. Nothing like there's nothing technically stopping them from competing in the league. We don't need to mind all of the harassment, all of the kind of like social stigmas and all of that stuff. But you're getting into kind of these arguments where, like, yes, you have stated a fact. There are less of these types of people playing the game. But I just don't really care about the reasons why and how we can work towards it. And then that also springs into the second. It's like, well, I want what is true equality, which is a meritocracy. And it's like, and everyone should just earn their place at the table. And it just reminds me of kind of this, and then they point to like the success stories, right? And it just reminds me of like when we talked about Black Lives Matter, it's like people pointing towards the Jay-Z's and the LeBrons and being like, look what they did. It's like just being like Jay-Z and LeBron. Why can't you do that? Like, just work hard and be successful. And then of course that's ignoring like the environment, right? So once again, I encourage you guys to go read the tweets and watch the video to really get a feeling of what the environment is, because blanket statements like, well, they should, just be able to play. It's like nothing stopping them from playing, number one. And number two, everyone's just trying to earn their position, earn their keep, right? Um, and you really don't get a good sense about why these arguments are so flawed until or unless you understand what it is to be on the other side and to read all of this. So go read, watch the video, read the tweets if you haven't done so already, because I think it's important. I think it's important for this game. And it's just like a big societal issue that I think needs a little bit more focus because we're pretty far off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're part of the Hearthstone community or you play Hearthstone or you care about esports and all, I'm sure you already have read this. But if you're just reading secondhand accounts, like really go to the primary sources of these. Like, watch Slissa's video. Like, I don't want to be talking about this much because it's kind of not my place to do more than support the women who are affected by this. But read their stuff, watch their stuff. It's pretty easy to find. It's kind of all over the place right now, at least for this weekend, and you'll get a sense. And I do want to. I think the most interesting part for me, and I'm going to paraphrase what I think. Yeah, I think this is from Slissa. What Slissa said, which is that Blizzard did not want to invite more women into, like, this is what Blizzard apparently told her, that they did not want to invite more women into certain invitationals and into certain like tournaments because they're afraid that women wouldn't perform well, and then that would reflect poorly on women and on Blizzard and cause kind of more problems than inviting.
It was actually different. So she, if you remember, like a few months back, she hosted a all women's tournament.
Yep.
She hosted an all women's tournament. Blizzard asked her to do this. Mm-hmm. So this is Blizzard asking her, is like, hey, can you host a BG tournament? She said yes. They gave her no, basically advertising, they gave her no compensation for her and no prizes, right? So they just asked her, is like, hey, can you do this? She actually wanted a 50-50 split of men and women. She's like, oh, this is a good way to showcase the women. And Blizzard told her, no, we want you to do all women because we're afraid it'll look bad if the men beat the women. That's a yikes. That's a huge yikes. Like, I mean, that's just like compounded on top of everything. Yeah. It's like, okay.
So if you're wondering about, like, it's not just, like, we talk about the community because most of the story is about the community, but it's also Blizzard. This is not a, I mean, the whole thing started because of the whole interest in it started because of the Blizzard Invitational recently. But this is kind of a Blizzard thing that stretches back for way longer than this. I'm sure there's been other things that, people just haven't spoken up about or people don't have, knowledge about, right? Like, who has a smoking gun like Slissa about the reasons for not doing stuff from, like, the horse's mouth in Blizzard, right? This stuff it's hard to get this kind of, like, even accusation, right? Much less any kind of evidence for it. It's enlightening to see what Blizzard's stance on the issue is, and then what the community stance on these issues are. I found it very enlightening. Anyway,
yes, very enlightening.
And it was. I would not have thought that Blizzard would say things like that. That seems like bad. Obviously so, but they did, and now people are calling for Blizzard to say something else, and that makes sense. And if you remember what happened with the Hong Kong thing a couple of years ago, who knows what Blizzard will do, right? The Hong Kong thing was obviously a huge success for Blizzard. They basically said nothing, let it blow over, made the most minor remarks possible, and then it blew over. And nothing happened, and no one really cares. And now it's kind of a meme. That's the most you get out of it. You get a meme out of it.
Right. And just like that, this is something that the women of Hearthstone have talked about for years now. So it's one of those things where I don't know. Like, I'm hoping there's real change from Blizzard's end, but their track record isn't great for a lot of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be, just because it's money. Like money's on the side of these women right now. It's not on the side of the opposition, and
That's true.
Blizzard should
It's like
really go with the money. Like it's really bad if you're like losing money in order to take sexist positions. Like, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm a business, I just seek profits, and the world is sexist, and so we're going to let our sexist consumers drive our policies. It's another to be like, our consumers are like, kind of moving along here, getting less sexist, but we're going to hold a more sexist position than our consumers, and
right.
and lose some money because of it. And that's okay.
It's like right now, they're kind of basically changing their policy and addressing these concerns also aligns with getting more money.
Yeah, like why not do it? That's just
why not do it?
There's no way they don't do it, right? Like, okay, I want to move on from the topic just because we could talk about this literally for hours. Merps and I are pretty well educated on this kind of stuff. We're too educated on this kind of stuff from a theoretical perspective, so we could say a lot of things that I don't want
not
to
being
say.
women.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're educated on being women.
We're educated on issues and history and like stuff like that.
Sure.
But just I don't want to say too much about it. We could easily say too much about it, is my point. So let's talk about Hearthstone and the arena and the new patch and then Battlegrounds. The biggest thing that happened was the button being pushed. But when it first happened, I think the biggest news that came out of it, because everyone was so focused on it, is that watch posts are gone. So I actually want to talk about watch posts first. Because if you remember, watch posts kind of dominated almost all the conversation before the expansion was released, as the expansion was releasing, after the expansion was released. It dominated all the conversations, because before it was released, we were like, this is S tier, will be terrible for the arena and shouldn't be in the arena. After it was released, everyone was like, oh yeah, these guys are right. What was theoretical before is now seen easily by everybody and backed up by stats. And then now we're at the point where watch posts are removed, but Blizzard went further than that, and I'm assuming for constructed reasons, although I was told they're not actually in that many constructed decks. But both Far Watch Post and Moron Watch Post actually got nerfed. Like, they're not in the arena anymore, so they also got removed from the arena. But there was a two-step process here as far as arena was concerned, because first they got nerfed for everybody, and Moron Watch Post is now a 3-4 instead of a 3-5, and Far Watch Post is a 2-3 instead of a 2-4, which, whatever you think about whether they should still be removed or not, and we'll talk about that next, they would not be. I mean, Far Watch Post was never the most powerful card, but it was still a very powerful card. At 2-3, it would not even be a premium card. And at 3-4, Moron Watch Post would have been win rate wise.
Moron Watch Post. That's a cute.
Moran.
Morshan.
Okay, whatever. These are all made up
Moron
words.
Watch Posts.
Okay, completely made up words. So the Moron Watch Post is gone from the arena, but in its nerf state, I don't think it would have been a top card. I don't even think it would have made the top 10 top neutral cards by win rate. Because you lose so much. Like, you're a card that doesn't do anything unless your opponent can't remove it without playing a minion. It does nothing. It's just a body that it has to get rid of. So it'll still be a good card, but I think losing that 1 health, and not just on turn 3, but even for later on, makes it so much more vulnerable. So Blizzard didn't even give it a chance, right, to like let it exist in the meta, because they came, we assume, that they came to the same conclusion that I think Merps and I have been talking about since pre-release, which is that it's not just that this is an S tier card that's closer to Runaway Blackwing than the next best neutral, common / rare / epic even, but it's that the design is terrible for the arena. Arena's about playing minions. They're not giving us a ton of spells in arena. They haven't changed up the offering rate in that way, so it makes it so that you can't play the game and you win and lose without having gotten to play your game. So both of those factors were bad and makes it not able to go in the arena. Comparisons are made to Flappy Bird, kind of the same thing, just like even worse, right? So it seems like Blizzard bought that argument at the end of the day. It took them a while to get there, but they removed it without even letting the nerfs sit in the arena. And I think if they nerfed it and it sat in the arena, it would have been fine from a power perspective, right? But still a bad card to be in the arena.
Yeah. So this is one of, like, I would have been surprised if they didn't remove it, just because it is strictly in line with their theory of what should be removed from the arena. And if you look at it, it's not just about power level. A lot of it is about this snowball potential, this runaway potential, and the fact that it just makes people feel terrible, which is part of the reason why like MCT was removed. I saw this thread recently on Arena HS. It was actually this thread that was talking about Venomous Scorpion. You know, probably like the best neutral card in the meta right now. It's definitely meta defining. And people were obviously singing its praises, like, oh, it's so good. And this discussion came about with multiple people, and it actually got a little bit of steam where they were just like this should have been removed in spite or like instead of watch post. It's like, this is more powerful than watch post. This is the one that should have been removed. And you know, it was echoed by like some players with good averages who have like good results from the game.
And also, like, statistically, from HS Replay, it was only like 0.5% performing worse than Watch Post. Like, it was close to Watch Post. I mean, 0.5% is kind of still a large percentage off.
It's still a large,
but it was the next up.
Right. And in my opinion, they couldn't be more wrong. They could not be more wrong. And it just shows like how some people don't understand why it is so problematic that in like, let's say 5% of, I don't know what the 5% of games, you just lose on turn 3, period. There's literally nothing you can do. And if you say, you're like, I'm okay with that, I think that is fine design. Some of them argue like you can play around it. No, you can't. Like, if you think you can't, no, you can't. Like, you can try, you can do whatever, and sometimes you have the answer in your hand, but no. If you're saying it is okay because 5% is a small number, I agree with you that 5% is a small number, but games should not end on the spot in whatever small percentage. It's just terrible game design.
Yeah.
There's going to be some people that disagree. I think a lot of people know the frustrations behind losing that. But I think this really highlights like just like some fundamental difference in thinking that I don't know if I'll ever be able to convince other people of that. Because a lot of the things we agree with, it's like watch post won't always win. Like, you know, it's not beating up the meta, right? Like in terms of what beats up the meta more, yeah, it's Scorpion.
Yeah,
it's definitely Scorpion.
It's
Scorpion,
seen like more than twice as often.
Right, it's seen more than twice as often. It pulls all these ridiculous spells, and because of the small pool, and they're like, well, you know, by overall quote unquote impact, it's much more impactful. I'm like, yeah, it's Scorpion is much more impactful. But you can't be okay with a card that if like coined out in turn 2 or just played on turn 3 and the board is like even or a little bit, you literally just lose. Like, that is terrible design. That's terrible for the health of a game. And I understand that Scorpion can pull out like a Flame Strike. Scorpion can pull out all of this stuff. That should be more acceptable, even though it is very powerful. And if you ask ADWCTA, a lot of things shouldn't be in the game than a watch post. And I feel as if like this is a great discussion to have right now, because it's one of those things where like I can see how other people think about this. We're going to, if the game goes on long enough, have another one of these situations, and how are people going to deal with it? And I'm afraid, like, if there is actually a decent amount of people that think something like Watch Post should be in the game, because if you want the game to survive, you cannot have a Watch Post-esque thing.
Yep. I mean, there's different reasons to nerf the game, to remove something out of it, right? But Watch Post was hitting everything. And nerfed Watch Post would have still hit the thing that is the Flappy Bird line of, like, not just feel badness, but like actually ending the game on turn 3, which is too early. Like, you're not even giving aggro decks an out. Like, that's your problem. At the very least, if you have, even if Runaway Blackwing was in the game, you can still make decks that try to win by turn 8. You can't do anything with a Moron Watch Post without good luck in, what cards you have in your hand, right? Like, I'd be Moron Watch Posts when they're dropped on turn 3 about as often as I lose to them, which is a really high rate. And that's because I know how long to play the long game for, and when I just need to put stuff on the board and kind of like take my losses with the Watch Post. So it's not that it doesn't take skill for your opponent, but it shifts the balance so much on turn 3. And it's near regardless of what kind of deck you have, because you can't have an all control, almost all spell deck in Arena. They don't let you draft it. They don't change the offering odds like that. Like, it's not constructed. If they guaranteed you, for example, that every pick, you have 3 options and one of them is going to be a spell or a weapon, then yeah, Watch Post can be in the Arena. Arena would look totally, entirely different. But that's not how the offering rates work. So you got to go with what's in the game, and that kind of design, it shifts it so much. I mean, I always hold anything we rate at A or above should not be a neutral card in the Arena. I still stick by that. And there's not that many cards that are A or above, but they exist, and they shouldn't be in the Arena for power reasons. But that's a different consideration, right? So if you're saying Scorpion shouldn't be in the Arena, I agree. But is it as bad as old Watch Post? Not even close. Like, not even 50%.
Yeah. Stuff like that just shouldn't, like, it's just not healthy for the game. And it also goes into sort of why I don't like the design of the caravans, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And with the caravans, it's even, like, you do get to a point where nobody even talks about it. Nobody even says, like, anything about it, because it's seen so rarely and so infrequently.
Also, Paladins suck.
Well, Paladins suck, but, like, I played some Arena this week. Someone coined out the Hunter one against me on coin 1.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with it. And they got, I think they, like, only, quote unquote, got 2 turns of buffs on it because I devoted everything to try to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, that got me behind, and suddenly he was playing everything with +2/+2, and then, wow, I lose, right? And it was because I didn't have a 1-drop. Oh man, I guess.
Well, you also didn't have a removal on turn 2 or 3,
and I didn't have a removal on turn 2, right? I didn't have a 1-drop, and by 1-drop, like, that thing has 3 health,
yeah.
right? So, and I couldn't. Yeah, so it's like, well, I guess I suck. That kind of stuff is just not good for the game. And caravans right now are at a point in which, in our opinion, the strongest caravan is in a really bad class. And also, if you notice and you played a lot of Arena, you just don't see the caravans.
Yeah.
You don't see them. They don't appear. So the impact is so much less. Whereas the Watch Post, for example, it was a neutral. So every class had access to it. So with the caravans, people can be very quiet about it because you just never ever see them. Even if you lose to them, like I watch myself lose to the Hunter caravan, it was just like, well, okay, but that didn't happen to me in, like, the previous, I don't know, 100 Arena games that I played, so whatever.
No, I mean, there's a post on Arena HS right now about Ysera, which is a terrible card, the new Ysera. It's a terrible card to have in the Arena. But the ones that actually get drafted rather than discovered, because Blizzard apparently can't change the Discover pool for Arena, to actually ban cards in the Discover pool. So if you just get rid of the drafted Ysera, it makes no difference on the bottom line of your win rate. Like, so yeah, like, you should get rid of it. It's bad for the Arena. You should get rid of caravans too. But does it really matter? Not really. Whereas Watch Posts were at least making some kind of impact in the meta. Even though it wasn't as big as I think we thought, because the offering rate wasn't as high as we thought. When it was in the deck, it did the amount of damage that we thought it would deal. All right. So that's the watch post kind of analysis, and I think it also shows, and this is also why, like when we do, like if you watch our card preview, like a lot of times, especially doing neutral cards, we would say things like, we don't understand why good players don't see that this card is, this level, and why some people think this particular card is average or even below average when we think it's good, or why some people think this is a good card and we think it's only average. And we're almost always right when we say that stuff. And we're talking about good players who do these kinds of reviews. Because I need to keep drawing the distinction between a good player who can pilot a good deck, or even a good drafter who, once they get a feel in the meta, they can do certain things, and an actual theorist. And I'm going to draw another distinction between someone who can think about the game in a vacuum with ones and zeros, and someone who knows anything about game design and can design a, either fun or balanced game. Like, these are all different skills. They have some overlap, but it's not as big as you think. Like, that's why the people who created Hearthstone, for example, most of them are not good TCG players. Most of them are like barely above average TCG players, because that's not what game design is about. And if you're wondering why Blizzard can't do what we do on the cards, even if they wanted to, think back to the what do you call it? The buckets, right? That's how you know what they think these cards actually are, because they literally had to put them in a bucket at release, and it was just comical what they did, because they can't do that. They can't think in a vacuum about these cards and how they work. They need to see the data to see it actually work. Like, they don't have that particular like skill set of being a theorist. They have game design, and a large portion of the Blizzard design team now are good players, but they're missing the theorist part, which is not really something. I mean, I guess you could test for it. They probably don't test it. I feel like if you're a Blizzard dev, they really care about like the game design part, because that's your role. You're a game designer. That's going to overwhelm anything else that you may have going for you. So this is why things are the way they are, right? Like, it's all connected to how this game works, and why you may see different reactions or different point of views or different like thinking among other players who are very, very good players. Like, it's not like we're sitting here and being like, we are better players than you or smarter than you, but we think in a way, and we're like, I've done literally game dev for a TCG, and we've been doing tier lists and like predictions forever, right? Like, we've done this before, and it's different skill sets. And some people, like, I mean, Merp says like they're just wrong, or they just don't get it, and it's true. Like, because they're thinking about it, and they may be thinking about it really hard, but they're going in one lane. And what they actually need to do is to jump to several different lanes that they're not either as good at or just as comfortable thinking in, and give it smaller weight. Like, not everybody, most people who are players don't play and think about game design while they're playing, right? They're thinking about how much they're enjoying the experience, or how much they can improve their win rate, or, whatever, they're a player. It's not the same thing.
Right. So remember the conversation, or what started this was basically people saying Scorpid should have been banned. A venomous Scorpid should have been banned instead of Morshan watch posts. And I know we're in an era now in which it's like, oh, you got to hear everyone's opinions. Like, there's validity in everything. No, there isn't. That's terrible game design, as in wrong game design. As in, if your opinion is that it is fine for there to be that 5% where people just lose on the spot, I can try to explain to you how you are wrong about game design, but I don't think you will understand it. Like, it is just wrong, and we can't have that. Like, we can't have that for the health of the game.
It's for the health of the game. It's not like you can't design a game without those elements. You totally can. People totally do it, but they're not very good games.
Well, and if your argument was, I want to ban both of them, all right, sure, I'm on board. Although it's like, realistically, we can't ban everything, and we understand that. But
I mean, like, the Scorpion is like at the highest end, like that's like, like we rated it almost A+, which means that we think that it is Twin Tyrant level, maybe even better than Twin Tyrant. Like that, like in the current meta, not in a dragon meta. Like so, it's just based off power level, right? That's why I keep saying like, yeah, I would ban all those, like Twin Tyrant, Claw Machine. Like Claw Machine is excellently designed to be as non-confrontational with your gameplay as absolutely possible, while still being ridiculously overpowered for a neutral card. Like I just don't want those things in neutral. I think that's bad game design too. But you can't get to the point where I mean, you can, but like you're missing a whole dimension of game design if you're not seeing the Morsham War Post problem beyond just pure power. And I think you're
calling it the Moron Watch Post. It's more appropriate.
Yeah, okay. Let's go with the Moron Watch Post. And even after they nerf it, it's still a problem, right? Like I said, I don't think it's a top 10 neutral card anymore after they nerfed it. But because that nerf is very serious, that health is all that matters. But like, still a bad card, still should be removed.
Yes. So, God, I'm debating whether or not I want to like open up this sort of Pandora's box. I'm gonna do it. I'm actually gonna do it.
We don't have time. All right. 2 hour podcast. Let's go. Let's do this.
I don't know about that. Okay, so I wanted to talk about something that we get kind of shit on a lot about, and it's almost like become a meme at this point, right? And I see, whenever we talk, whenever we put ourselves out there, we talk about predictions and everything. I want to bring it up because I think it speaks to this disconnect on game design and what people kind of don't understand. When we have issues with something, here is the issue, right? And it seems like, we're talking past each other. So let's talk about Ticket Scalper. You remember that card? Mm-hmm. You remember? So if you guys don't know, lots of people have memes about it, and they're like, oh, the GOAT guys got Ticket Scalper so wrong. It's like, we
got Ticket Scalper slightly wrong. We didn't get it so wrong. We rated it like a 130, I think, maybe a 140. I mean, it was back in the day. A 130 or 140 would be pretty damn high for neutral. Right. But it wasn't like a top 10 neutral.
I mean, Twin Tyrant was what, 190, 180 something?
I mean, back then, like, the scale never went up that high. But still, like, we never rated it a top 10 neutral. Even in our, like, pre-release ratings. It was just...
like, overall.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just not a... But we did think that it was problematic.
Right. And I think people get caught up in the sort of like, is this powerful? Is this not powerful? And they tie the problematic tag to that. Whereas if you remember, like if you listen to us back then, the problem, so, okay, rewind. This is 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Our warnings and the whole thing about Ticket Scalper were, I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this stuff, sometimes it is really good. Other times it is really bad. This creates swings, either one way or the other. Too many swings at a point of the game as early as turn 4, turn 5 is bad for the game. Let's fast forward to now. Does that remind you of some of the things that people complain about? So here's the thing. Look, did we get the initial rating of Ticket Scalper correct? No, I think we rated it a little bit too high. A little bit. Yeah. Like it wasn't a trash card.
We rated it like 20 points too high. 25 maybe at most.
So if you actually listen to sort of like all of these warnings, and it's turned into this thing, it's like, oh, the GOATs thought it was like they were so wrong. They thought it was amazing. And that was the reason why they made a whole hubbub about it. And that's the reason why they were so epically wrong. Number one, I don't think we were epically wrong. And number two, if you actually listen to us.
And we repeated it many times on the review on the Lightforge after it came out. Like
in 2018, you did not want to go down this path that we saw Blizzard going down, which was a card sometimes being very, very good, other times being very bad, creating swings very early in the game, and that sort of blows the game open for either side in many ways in which sometimes you can't really control, right? Like when you put it
I
down,
mean, you can
like,
almost never really control it.
you can't
It's like
really control it.
85%, 95% chance you can't control
Wow.
it.
Like, man, like that kind of sounds like a lot of complaints, not about any specific cars, but like, wow, like as you go from 2018 to 2019 to 2020 to now, when you see like an angry post on Arena HS, that kind of sounds like what a lot of people are complaining about, right? It's like, wow, swings are a little bit too early,
Yeah.
or there was, the swings are a little bit too big either way. Yeah, I could have done some stuff about it, but I don't have the control that I want. So
So,
I think whenever we do this stuff, there's like a lot of this disconnect here where we're trying to communicate why a card is problematic, and people, because their own definition of problematic equals power, automatically get drawn to that. And so I want to bring up Ticket Scalper because I see this being thrown back at us a lot. And I'm like, okay, I will admit, I don't think the initial rating of Ticket Scalper was like completely accurate, although I don't think we were so
no, we've
wrong.
gotten other
But
cars way more wrong than Ticket
yeah,
Scalper. They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
come back for some reason.
But since I'm seeing all this criticism about Ticket Scalper, it just has highlighted to me exactly what these people don't understand
Yeah.
or didn't listen or chose not to listen about it. They're stuck in this problematic equals power. The GOAT guys made a huge hubbub about this is problematic. Therefore, they believe that it was super duper powerful. We have shown that it is not super duper powerful. Therefore, they were really wrong. Whereas you go back and listen to why we made a huge hubbub about Ticket Scalper. You come back to present time, look at, even if you don't have the complaints, look at the general complaints people have about not liking Arena. There you go.
Yeah, for those who are like missing the context to this, as 2018 on the previews for Ticket Scalper, we made a big deal. We said this card should be banned, should not be in the arena. It's a 4 mana, 5/3, like four drop that has overkill. Draw 2 cards. So that means if it hits something and kills it, and the thing has 4 health or less, you would draw 2 cards. So that back then there were not swings like they have today. That was the biggest card draw in the game. That was not like, I don't know, at least like 6 mana or something. At least 7 mana probably, and it was obviously conditional, and not reliable. But when it hit back then, when card advantage actually mattered, it just ended games. And more or less, like it was card draws, so it didn't fully end games until many turns later, especially if it was played on curve. But if you ever got it to trigger, having 2 more cards than your opponent was such a huge deal back then. It was not classic, where having 1 card more than your opponent was a big deal, but it was still close enough to that era of swings and power level generally in the arena that having 2 cards was a very big deal. And it was a neutral card. I forgot if it was common or rare, but it was definitely seen a lot. And I think ultimately the end rating of that card by the end of the meta was like 10 points above Yeti or something like that. It was not too high. We initially rated it something like 20 or 30 points above the Yeti, which again means we missed it by like 20 points, which is not that big of a miss. But we did make a big deal about needing it out of the arena because we didn't like the swing, and we thought that was going to be like a kind of a common thing. And people kind of eviscerated us for it because we made a big deal out of it, and they thought that it was okay to have these kinds of swings. And Blizzard kept adding these kinds of swings, more and more and more and more and more. In the year after that one, card advantage became, no, not the year. In 2 years after that, card advantage became irrelevant in the arena. Blizzard just started printing cards that just like big old whelps and stuff, right? Were just like normal neutral cards that were like okay. And the game kind of went in a totally different direction than what it was before then. And Ticket Scalper was kind of that the canary in the coal mine. And we were sounding the alarm, and people were giving us shit for it. And it was like, okay, I mean, it's just bad game design for the arena, but go for it, I guess. And they went for it, and now it spreads from card advantage to tempo because you have to, because that's how these games work. You can't just have unlimited card advantage, or else tempo becomes useless. So then you also have to have big swings on the tempo to match the same thing, blah, blah, blah. And now we are at equilibrium again. We are at the new equilibrium in the new core set, Hearthstone 2.0, and all the things are balanced again. But it really, I mean, you could argue that it started way before that, but on the card advantage side, Ticket Scalper was the start.
Right. Because it was also neutral, right?
Yes, it was
and
neutral.
The fact is that it was so easy to, like, the fact that it wasn't just this like omega broken card with no weaknesses, what is kind of what made it worse.
Yeah.
Because it's like a swing on either direction, right? Or like, you know, it wasn't this like, basically it's not like a mage scribe in which even if you don't get the value, it's like, dude, it's a 4/9.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a 4/9. That's properly statted and actually really good for like staying on the board. No, this is a 5/3 for 4 mana, right? But so I wanted to address one thing. Like, you said that they were okay with the swing, and I think that they don't even think about the swing. They were okay with the average power level when it was played.
I see.
These people don't think about swings. They just think if the overall power level is fine, that's okay. And it's the same thing, and it's why we're having this sort of kind of disparity in the conversations about, let's say, like caravans, right? People are saying if the average power level is fine, I'm fine with it. So when we say something is problematic, like, swings don't even enter their mind. They just think about power level. So they're like, okay, well, if the power level is fine, you know, that's fine. These people are wrong. Whereas standard deviations, the you know, these 5%, 2% scenarios are very important. Like, they're very, very important. And I think, like, when you don't think about, it's like when you're disregarding swing and you only look at average power level, that's how you get to some of the problematic metas that we see.
Yeah, that's fair. It's people thinking on these like really narrow like paths, right? Like, it's not like, and these are not like dumb people. Like, I think actual dumb people are filtered out actually pretty well by even a place like Reddit, because they can't defend their thoughts at all, or they do it very poorly. It's people who are smart, but only in one direction, and you can be smart in many different ways, right? And for something like recommending balance changes or game design, you have to be smart in several different ways. And when you're missing one of them, it really puts the blinders on, even though you can make good arguments for like your line of thinking, for one line of thinking. And like, again, that's the difference. There's a difference between not just how people think, but it's not like oh, people think differently and so they're all right. Like, no, the people who see a broader view are more right than the people who see a narrower view. That's kind of how being right works. And on things such as this, you got to take the broader view, right? On things such as recommending bans or recommending like game design changes, you have to take as broad of a view as you can, and you have to go down all the paths. You have to weigh them according to their, you know, impact. And you can't ignore things like swing. You can't ignore things like on what turn does the game end. These are pretty basic game design things. So you could say on a strict power level something is better. You could say even on a competitive level something is fair. But or you know, this, it's hard to make a skill-based argument. But you can even get some mileage out of it. But you can't get to the point where you say this is good game design. Like, it fails so hard on that one that the other good arguments kind of not just get hampered, but they kind of, it's on a different scale. Like how bad game design these kinds of decisions are. All right, I don't want to go too down deep into this rabbit hole, but I thought it was a good link with watch posts as well, and how watch posts go. So yeah, as far as the meta goes, I think we're in the meta now. I know, like if you listen to the podcast from the beginning, the first couple days we still weren't in the meta, but by now we're in the meta. This is the meta. They may push the button again, shift it a little, but this is more or less what the meta is going to feel like until they actually do a rotation. And the meta's good. We thought it was going to be good. It is good. There are different ways to play the meta. They all work well enough that you can do it if your draft pushes you into it. You can go fast, you can go slow. The randomness is controlled enough. We're about to play Priest today, but they nerfed. So the nerfs came to Priest and to Demon Hunters. And they did not nerf Demon Hunters to shit. Demon Hunters are alive. They have, like, what, roughly 50% win rate? Like, they nerfed Demon Hunters in appropriate amount, surprisingly. But they buffed Rogue, Paladin, Shaman, and Hunter. Sorry, and no, did they buff Paladin? No, they buffed Shaman, Druid, Hunter, and Rogue. Yes, those are the classes that they buffed, and Druid and Hunter are still at the bottom. So maybe getting more buffs in the future, maybe not. Like they're within reason at this point. I think they're like what 3 percentage points behind 50%. I don't have it in front of me right now. But the highest class right now is Rogue, which they chose to buff, and it's always scary when you buff Rogue. And Rogue is now at
54.
Oh, is it 54 now? It was at 52 point something last time I checked a couple days ago.
It's at 54.
54.4 now. Okay, so Rogue is getting a little out of hand as people realize that it's actually a really good class, and they somehow buffed the offering rates, and lackeys are still a thing, and rogues get the free 2 lackeys on the card that dominated Arena a while before Evil Miscreant. So that's, I guess, dominating the meta right now. In Warlock is at 52.3, and bringing up the bottom is Paladin, because Paladin did not get buffed. Demon Hunter's at 48.3, which is totally fine. So yeah, bring up the bottom is Mage and Paladin. Oh, I didn't see Mage being down there that hard. But that's interesting. That is interesting, because they didn't touch Mage. I guess they buffed everything else. But yeah, but they didn't touch Warrior and they didn't touch Mage. And Mage used to be basically where Warrior was. And now Mage is like 3.5 percentage points behind. So it's interesting. And that stuff like that definitely shows that there's a meta change, right? In addition to just classes moving up and down the power level. Because otherwise, 2 classes that didn't get touched should maintain the same power balance. So the meta is now shifting in a way that's less favorable to the normal mage playstyle, more favorable to the normal warrior playstyle, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't know when they're going to push the button again. I expect it won't be anytime soon, so we'll just have to live with this rogue thing. I last played on Friday when rogue was 52.7% or something, and that felt like a pretty decent meta.
I think people are realizing with rogues, they can really push the tempo. They can go face. Like you can actually consistently play aggressive with rogues, mainly because if you look at their top cards, their number 1 card is Wicked Stab, which basically, like, it deals 6 damage on turn 10, right? So as long as you get to turn 10, it can deal 6 damage to the face.
Mm-hmm.
The second most common card is Scorpid, which can find damage, right? The third most common card is Wand Thief, which can find damage. And then their fifth, and then it's Swashbuckler, which can find whatever. And then it's a Volpera Toxin Blade, which, buffs your dagger. It's just a lot of damage. And then the next card is Cursed Vagrant, which you can't get rid of, right? You basically can't get rid of unless you have Hex. There's not even Polymorph anymore. So rogues, I think, are just starting to play more optimally as well, and just realizing the fact that, wait, I am going to get so much damage in the draft, whether directly or indirectly, And then, of course, I have all of these mana efficient ways to remove, do all of this stuff. Plus, I have like good offering rates and just good cards generally, claw machines, hog ranchers, etc. I should just play more aggressively because I will have the reach in my deck, even if they like AoE me a billion times. I should be able to get there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the danger with upping rogue, right? Like when
Yeah.
rogue was in one of the classes that were buffed, like yeah, rogues weren't doing. They were like third from the bottom or something, and they were not doing well before the button was pushed, and they pushed the button because they do it based purely on win rates. It's always a warning sign because whenever they buff rogue, they get it wrong more often than they get it right because it's done by a computer, like maybe with a human to do a check on it, but their humans working on the arena are not really great at knowing what to do with the arena. So it's basically a computer. And the computers just can't, at least their algorithm that they're using to do this kind of balancing, it gets rogues wrong a lot. So here, I'm sure rogues would have been fine and made for a better meta if they just didn't touch it. But they instead made rogues go up as recommended by their algorithm. And this is what happens. One of the good things, though, about rogue being high up is that whenever there's a meta in which rogues are actually doing well, like it never feels good, right? Because rogues control like everything. But there's not as many rogues as you would see if almost any other class were at the top. Because people do not like freaking playing rogues. So that is one of the silver linings of having rogues on top. And this has just been historically true. For whatever reason, arena players don't like playing rogue.
Yep. I think a lot of Infinite players love playing rogue.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of choices, but you also take a decent amount of face damage. Face damage is even more important now than it has ever been because of the capabilities, because of the swings. So it's a very fun class to play, but it's harder to pilot because a lot of the times you have quite a few choices, and also the choices you make are a little bit more important. I've said this stuff with stuff like aggro hunter, and if you're playing an aggressive rogue as well, you're going to be faced with some of those similar decisions. Now you're going to have more flexibility, but the principle is there, and I would encourage you guys to definitely play it. Like if you are thinking about arena, or if you historically have been avoiding rogue, because it definitely it improves your fundamental understanding of tempo, of risk analysis. It's just one of those things where you need to up your game in order to play rogue at the highest levels.
Yeah, and rogue is the master of, well, they can go token wide, or they're basically trying to do aggro control. And if you let them, they're going to go token wide. Otherwise, they can do a single minion. They're going to keep hitting your face or removing your stuff. And they have a decent amount of card advantage with all their cards that, cycle and draw other cards and whatnot. But you can run rogues out of card advantage if you live long enough. But in order to live long enough against the rogue, you have to not just heal and taunt, but also be able to remove rogue stuff. And you have to be very protective of your health, because as Merps was talking about, all the cards right now are very good at bursting you down. Very, very, very good at bursting you down from rogue's perspective. So you can wear them down, but you have to be you have to start protecting your health from when it's 24 health. You're like, oh no, I really need it to be 26. That's the kind of protection you need to do on the rogue side. What you don't want to do, and so rogues don't have Phantom Knives anymore. They have no board clears whatsoever. So what you don't want to do is look at that and then say, oh, well, I'm going to spread out on the board, Paladin style, and just have a bunch of stuff, and the rogues can't remove it all. The rogues can remove it all. That's what the rogues do. They may not be able to remove it all in every single turn, but generally, they're very good at flipping the board, and they're very good at aggro controlling. And right now, the classes that need to be on the board are not as good at putting pressure on the board as the rogue is going to be at removing stuff from the board. So you're going to have some trouble with that kind of strategy against the rogue. This is just if you're facing like rogues and you're having like problems with it. I think for the most part though, you don't have to. This isn't like a demon hunter domination or like a paladin domination or a priest domination where you're going to have a strategy against that particular class because it is the best. With rogue, you don't see them often enough that you have to like vary your deck for it. But if you are facing a rogue and you are on the board class, there's not that much you can do about it. Like you just kind of have to pray. And you know, similarly, if you're off the board class, you just play very conservatively. Like the rogue is going to run out of steam eventually, and that's what you have to wait for. You're not gonna turn things around and push aggro, right? Like if you're a slower deck, and if you are the faster decks that are pushing aggro, you're not gonna get there. Like you're gonna be off the board.
Okay, so that's the arena meta. Check it out if you were tired of demon hunters. Demon hunters are not the problem they once were. They can still find a cycle or an expendable performance off a Scorpid and make you angry. But the days of them just passively drawing it from their deck and beating you every single time, those are, that's done. So hopefully you like getting beat up by double wicked stabs on turn 10 for 12 damage. But check it out. That's the meta right now. I think it's okay. It's better than it was before. No watch posts, and losing to Demon Hunter always felt really bad because no other class beat you with so many singular cards. So if you get beat by some pretty powerful cards, no other class just had like the Coil Fang plus the expendable performers plus the Cycle of Hatred. Cycle of Hatred also is like stupid levels of stupid. It's like they're stupid and they're stupid.
A lot of Demon Hunter cards are stupid.
A lot of are pretty stupid. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the actual changes to cards because they actually nerfed a couple cards in addition to the watch posts. Just going to go over them really quickly. They don't really affect Arena much. Deck of Lunacy was 2 mana, now 4 mana. Don't take it. Don't take it even harder. Sword of the Fallen, which is a Paladin card. That's a 2 mana 1/3. After your hero attacks, cast a secret from your deck. Is now a 2 mana 1/2. After your hero attacks, cast a secret from your deck. Before it was actually like possibly takeable, like kind of a little below average. I think we rated it. Now it's terrible. Just don't do it. Jandis Barov got raised a mana, which everybody likes, but honestly, it's not like that many people at Jandis anyway. But it's good to see it being raised a mana. It helps a lot in the arena. And Penflinger now no longer goes face, which is nice because I always hated freaking Penflinger, so it's good they nerfed him a little. Not really a huge arena consideration, the going face things, but it was annoying the few times that it didn't matter. So those are the other card updates that impacted arena, and now let's move on to Battlegrounds.
I wanted to go through the unit changes first and then talk about the heroes, because with the heroes we're really talking about the meta. Let's talk about the unit changes quickly.
Okay, I'll go over the unit change and you give your take, because I don't have a take on these.
There's really no take on them.
So okay, fine. Go through them. I mean, is it good now or what? Right? Like, okay, what? Anyway, wait. So we're doing the changes. That's not the new heroes. Okay.
Yes.
So Steward of Time, which was the 3/4 dragon that when you sell the minion gives all minions of Bob's Tavern +1/+1, tier 2, is now a 3/3 instead of a 3/4, and it gives all minions of Bob's Tavern +2/+1 instead of +1/+1.
So this one, people were debating. It's like, is this a buff? Is this a nerf? I don't know exactly. Look, I don't think it really matters either way. I will say, I think the higher MMR that you are, the more you care about the initial stats, because the more you care about when you buy this. It's like, what are you buying Steward of Time? And what
I
was
are you about to say, isn't the one stat earlier always better than the stats later? Like, how is this debate?
Well, here's the thing. Like, sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Sometimes you want the attack if you find Divine Shields, and a lot of times when you buff, you want to buff the Divine Shield things anyways. But yes, I would say that for me, this is a nerf. Like, you want that extra health. You want, when you buy the Steward of Time, for it to be more relevant there. So, yeah, this is not that great.
Okay, pack leader to support the tier 1 beast archetype that Blizzard officially recognizes now. It used to be a 2-3, and pack leader is now a 3-3.
This is just really, like, this is just really dumb. As in, I don't know why pack leader was so weak in the first place, because they made it way too weak.
They nerfed it in 2 ways,
They nerfed it
when it was too powerful.
Yep.
And now they undid half the nerf.
Which is good, which is what it should have been in the first place.
Exactly. Tier 1 beast, super viable strategy. Give it a shot. Next is Monstrous Macaw, another card that Tier 1 beast works well with. It is a Tier 3 card, and it was a 4-3, and now it's a 5-3. Same ability.
This is why I don't understand it all, because Macaw was used in quite a few packages, whether it was the Goldrum package, whether people used it in just sort of like a menagerie or a neutral package with Selfless Heroes, or with Nadina in a dragon composition. I don't understand. Like, this card was getting a good amount of usage. Why buff it? And we've talked about this before. Macaw is one of those cards that I look at it, I'm like, this has to be restricting design in some ways. And is it worth it? Some cards that kind of restrict design might be worth it, right? Because they're so cool. Others, I'm like, really? And then for them to buff it, it's like, why are we touching Macaw in the first place? I don't understand.
It's also like a 50-50 whether you go first or not, so that makes Macaw even more poorly designed card than the ability itself, which is already a poorly designed ability. And I had mapped out the ability, and it really needs to be tier 4 for the game to have design space. But Blizzard doesn't care about any of that stuff. I mean, there's a limited enough pool in Battlegrounds that you don't really have to like let the math super dictate how you do things. You can just control what kind of cards go into your pool, right? So it's not like Arena, right, where it's actually going to have like huge impact because you can't control the Arena pool very well. But still, I think if I were to be in Blizzard's shoes, and they don't give an explanation for why they do this stuff in this update. Sometimes they do. This time they didn't. I think they want to do it because it gives you more of an on-ramp. They want you to hit, for example, Beast or a Death Rattle package with already a Macaw on there that was used for other stuff and, for tempo-y kind of like stuff. Like, I think that's the goal, is for you to be more able to take Macaw on 3, like as your tier 3 unit, and then just have it so that you can on-ramp better to, the lesser played of the later game archetypes. That's the only reason I can think of. It doesn't make any sense to make this change otherwise.
I don't know.
Yeah, and in the end game, that one extra damage is really not going to matter, right? So, next is Herald of Flame, tier 4 dragon that was 5/6, overkill, deal 3 damage to the leftmost enemy minion. Is now 6/6 instead of a 5/6. Makes sense. Dragons are kind of weak. There's been a little bit of a power creep. It now matches the power creep.
Yeah, that's the thing. Dragons have been squeezed out a little bit, not in terms of their potential power, but the breathing space that you have to get to the dragons, number one. That initial ramp up where after you have spent so much resources getting the Cow Ghost, taking the hits, you might need to still buy up a couple dragons. Your initial buffs aren't as impactful. You got to survive those turns as well. Yeah, this helps that a little bit, because with the proliferation of taunt comp, with the way that the game is going right now, dragon comps, even though you might see some win some lobbies, have become a lot more dangerous to attempt. So this helps that out a tiny bit.
Next up, Wildfire Elemental. For tier 4, 7/3 old, now is a 7/4. Its ability is this: after this attacks and kills a minion, deal excess damage to a random adjacent unit. It was always okay, but not good. Now they've just solidified it a bit more. It's not like an impactful change.
Yeah, not really that impactful. I wouldn't. I have no comment on this.
Next
Then
one. This one,
the next two.
yeah, the next two are going to be impactful and in a good way, I think. It's Gar and Little Rag. So Gar was a 5-1, is now an 8-1. Remember, this is the one that it has taunt, is tier 4, and gains +1 health for each elemental you have every time you play an elemental. So it scales in health, presumably at a decent clip, but its attack was always a bit low, and they seriously upped it. And this used to be a kind of unit, and now it'll be a decent unit. And Little Rag was a 4/4, is now a 6/6, another 6 tier 6 elemental. And the ability is after you play an elemental, give a friendly minion stats equal to the elemental's tavern tier. That hasn't changed. Its base used to be an 8/8, I think, and then they dropped it to a 4/4. Now they went halfway back because it became kind of a crappy card.
Yep. Okay, look. Tier 6 elementals. I've said this for a while. Blizzard just got so spooked by the genie meta. If you guys don't remember, it was basically Gentle Genie being able to discover from any elemental tier, not just whatever tier you were on, and it created this super toxic high roll meta where you could be on tier 4, triple into a tier 5 genie, and then you could get the Amalgadon or Little Rag from tier 6, even though you were at tier 4, and it would just snowball from there. It was like super toxic. Everyone was just chasing the genies in order to get stuff that they had no business getting. And so Blizzard got spooked. They nerfed everything. Genie, Gar, Little Rag. And now they're like, okay, well, we can bring it back. I got news for you guys. Just like how dragons are dangerous to go for, Little Rag is the worst scaling unit for its sort of like cost / price that's currently like in the game. Like you can say, well, you can say like, oh, well, if we're just talking about elementals, like Party Rock is, it doesn't give you as much stats as Rag could. Major Domo, it only focuses on one, but it's all relative, right? So it's like relative to Little Rag, Party Rock is better because of when you can get it. Yeah, because it's freaking tier 2. Tier 6 elementals continues to be terrible, as in most of the time, you are just not able to capitalize off of it like once you're able to get it. At least with Caligos, it's like the payoff is very good, and you have this like pathway to get there, and it ramps up a little bit faster. And even with dragons, I was talking about how hard the ramp up is sometimes. The ramp up with elementals with Little Rag, and I'm not talking about those high roll situations where you're Chimvala and it's like turn 7 and you already have like double Little Rag with a Gar because you just weren't lucky enough to find all the elementals and triple and go to tier 6. Yeah, in those situations is great, but I think Blizzard has to do something major with tier 6 elementals. And it's not just like a meta shift. It's like right now, what you get, even if it's a meta that like rewards everyone for going to tier 6, do all of this stuff, what you get is not that much. And the only reason we were ever terrorized by Little Rag and Gar and all of that stuff was just because we had this fluky, funky, almost like bug in a card. And it created this like terrible situation where elementals just dominated everything because people were getting tier 6s when they were only tier 4s. I think we just need something else. Like, yeah, they're buffing Gar, they're buffing Little Rag. As of right now, tier 6 elementals are just so rarely a thing. And I think they have to redo tier 6 elementals. Because it's like, if dragons are in the game and if elementals are in the game, it's like, and if you have a choice, it's like, which one would you go for? Well, between my first Caligos and first Little Rag, yeah, definitely like the Caligos. Like the Caligos is much easier, right? You have the Nadina, potentially you have all of this stuff. So look, them changing it, I like how they're like, okay, there's problems with tier 6 elementals, and maybe this is just like a salve, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to do something in the future, but there's some major issues here, and because of what you're comparing it to in tier 6, I'm just like a lot more changes have to happen for this to be good. Like
Yeah.
generally, and not just create like a Chimbala 2.0 which can utilize it, but other people can't utilize it.
Yeah, I don't really understand how the math behind Little Rag is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Because Caligos is +6/+6, non-random. Little Rag is based on the tier unit that you're buying. So what is that
And
average,
random.
right? Yeah, and
And,
random,
yeah.
and you're gonna on average get half of what you get from Caligos. And on top of that, your end game doesn't have Divine Shield, or like one of your units may have Divine Shield, right? Like, and the other ones don't. So why?
I don't know.
Like it's so far behind. Like I get it, you don't want to make it the same as Caligos because Caligos is like one unit, right? And you have the options as elementals, right, rather than the dragon one. So maybe you don't make it as powerful as Caligos, but it's like so far below Caligos. It's not even funny.
Right. It's like one also works with literally all battle cries, and the other one you're just like, oh, please give me decent, like high tier stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you get something like a Tavern Tempest, that could potentially be super value, right?
Yep.
Amazing. Or if you got a tier 6 elemental, it's like, okay, well now I'm just matching Caligos. Yeah, the math just doesn't work out, right? The math just doesn't work out. So I hope they do something with it because I know people might still be a little bit traumatized by that meta, but as of right now, there is just one way to play elementals, Nomi. And Nomi doesn't really require that much skill. It's very straightforward. Is it fun? I think it's still a little bit fun. I just think the overall potential of elementals is wasted a little bit when tier 6 elementals just is not a thing unless you're super duper high rolling. And Nomi is just so one dimensional. It's just so one dimensional. And yeah, there's ways to play it wrong, but with Nomi elementals, you're more focused on how do I not mess this up? And also, how do I get into the good graces of Bob so that he can give me more elementals rather than like, oh man, there's all of these plays, which one is correct, which one isn't. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on these two changes. Like I saw it, I was like, okay, it's not what we need long term. But by changing it, I think they recognize there's a problem here.
Yeah, and keep in mind if you're doing like Party Rock as elementals rather than Nomi, it means you still eventually get here. Like you eventually get to Gar or Little Rag, maybe. And when you get there, you want these anyway, just because that they are what fits your build. Not regardless of how good they are, right? Like they're going to be better than usually they're going to be better than whatever else you happen to have. So it is like more than allowing for tier 6 elementals to really be a thing again. These are a buff to Party Rock. These are a buff to tier 2 elementals.
You don't reach these if you're Party Rock.
Yeah, I reach these enough of the time.
You're not supposed to.
Okay, well, but you do sometimes, and they do things. You also don't think tier 1 beast is a thing, and clearly, I think Blizzard is providing support to tier 1 beast that could potentially translate into tier 6 beast, and to Party Rock, which could potentially translate into tier 6 elementals. You're just hating on the tier 2 tier 1 archetypes.
Okay.
Okay. But no, seriously, Little Rag is still pretty terrible. We have two battlegrounds heroes added back. One is Queen Wagtoggle.
Favorite.
Yes, used to give friendly minions +2/+1 for 1 mana. That's all minion type, like of each minion type. +2/+1. Now it's been nerfed to +1/+1.
Not the biggest nerf. Health has always been more important than attack. The attack that you gain is enough, like 95% of the time, when it comes to early game minions that you're facing on the other side of the board, such that you can play Wagtoggle the same way you have played her when she initially got buffed and then removed for being too powerful. she's good. So she's like a tier 2 hero right now. Part of the reason why, so um if I'm saying this, you might be thinking, well, Merps, if you're saying the power level isn't that much different, and the first time around she was like, destroying the meta, what's going on now, right? Like, if the stat isn't making up a difference, why isn't she destroying the meta currently? Couple of things. Number one, people have gotten access earlier on to stuff that can challenge Wagtoggle's early board, which is big minions with lots of attack, lots of health, no divine shields, no like tech, right? No tech, just like stats, easier. And by that I mean taunt comps. Taunt comps, just like you attack into them, they keep on buffing, they keep on like getting higher attack, and then it's harder for you to come out of your power, hero power leveling turns unscathed. ADWCTA, remember when we played her the first time around, you just like consistently got to not just tier 4, tier 5 with tons of health, right? Like 40 health, 35 health, and you're like, oh, this is easy. The meta was different. People were leveling with you back then. People aren't doing it now exactly. And then taunt comps aren't beating, like weren't there beating you up as well, such that in previous metas, even though you were doing the same thing, people didn't have access to these things that could beat you. And people weren't staying down a little bit more. And there's a huge difference between going to tier 5 with 40 health and having time to figure everything out versus you getting there with like 24 health and being like, I better find something literally at this minute, otherwise I'm dead. So it's a little bit of explanation why it's the same. It doesn't really make a difference as to the attack, but she's not like completely crushing the meta anymore.
Yep, that makes sense. Captain Hooktusk is the other one that's coming back, and I've always hated the design of this hero power, and they did not make it any better. But so it used to be for 1 mana, remove a friendly minion, discover a random one from a tavern tier lower. It is now 0 mana, remove a friendly minion, but choose one of 2 from a lower tavern tier to keep. This hero power has gone through so many iterations. It was too powerful, it was too crappy. I think they're trying to find a sweet spot with this one. But the design problem is always that this is the only hero power that takes 4 clicks. Most hero power takes 1 click, and the highest other hero power besides this one who have ever existed takes 2 clicks.
Too many clicks for Boomer ADWCTA.
Well, each click is a decision, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm going to click a bunch of things. Like, you have to like think before you click each time. It's too much. Like Jandis is the other one, but that's only 2 clicks.
Okay, all right.
I'm not even kidding. Like when you double the amount of clicks of your like next highest click, and that's double your median. That's huge. That's a huge outlier in game design. Like we talk about game design in the arena context and what makes for good and bad game design. This is bad game design because it's an outlier that is doing stuff to it that's not like anywhere near it, and it's unnecessary too.
All right. So let's talk about Hooktusk for a second. And Hooktusk right now is a solid tier 1 minion. If you look at the top 1%, this is from HS Replays, tier 7. The tier 1 right now is Cthulhu, Jandis, Hooktusk, and the Maiev. So you have Hooktusk right in between Jandis and Maiev, 2 heroes which I think people recognize, are very powerful, have a lot of flexibility. Cthulhu is the odd one out here because it's like herp-a-derp, click the button, do my thing, and survive until the late game. Probably don't take first.
I mean, by the way, all 4 of these are poorly designed heroes. Just from a pure design perspective.
Ways.
Yeah, in different ways. But they're all poorly designed beyond their power level. Like, if you just reduce stuff until they're, like, no longer, like, win rating that high, you have not solved their problem of being poorly designed heroes.
I mean, that's a talk for another time.
Okay,
But
okay. I may put an asterisk on Jandis just because I hate her so much. Jandis's design may be okay, but the other three are like they're
so
bad.
I find it appropriate that Hook Tusk is right there with Jandis in terms of the average placement, because I think the way that you play them is very similar now. And just like with Jandis, I see Hook Tusk's kind of story arc is very close to Jandis's arc if we're going about this route. Like if you remember, Jandis used to be all about pogos, and she had this gameplay in which it was an easy top two or sometimes top one just by going pogos, right? You swap the pogo, you buy the pogo, you win, you get giant 200 pogos. That's how you did it with Jandis. And then when pogos went away, Jandis players were just like, oh, we don't have this easy win anymore. Now we actually have to try. Now we actually have to get creative, not just with tokens, but with buffs. We have to think about it's like, oh, do I hold this buff in hand so next turn I can swap it again? How does the gold work out if I do like this swap plus like play the token, et cetera, et cetera? It's not just herp derp pogos. So Hook Tusk the first time around was tier one cheese. You had the Sorlisk cheese, you had the demon cheese, all of the cheese, right? It was just like, and now that you don't have that anymore, like you can't just do the Sorlisk demon tier one / tier two strat. Hook Tusk has opened up, just like Jandis has. If you see the best composition, according to Aegis Replay, for Hook Tusk right now, it's Elementals. But really, from my experience playing her this week, you should just play Hook Tusk like similar to how people play Jandis now, in which you can go a lot of different compositions. You want to use it for tempo. You want to strategically think about what could I possibly get, what kind of triples can I get, and just use it to incrementally push you towards like snowball towards a big advantage. And suddenly you can sometimes you can do these pop-off plays just like Jandis can, but a lot of times it's like, okay, well, I got a buff. Now I can search like for a tier 3 unit, and I can get either another buff from there, or, oh, one of my units is tier 3. I found a pair, and then suddenly, you just have this pair, and you have the triple ready at any given moment. Very, very powerful, a lot more open, a lot more choices. So it's more fun in that way. Just like how I believe Cthulhu gaming is terribly boring and incredibly restricts your lack of choices. Like just like Wagtoggle, right? Cthulhu and Wagtoggle are very similar in that, power level aside, it's like you make so little choices, especially in the early and mid game. It's like it's frightening how little choices you make. Hook Tusk, you make a lot of choices now. I think it's very fun, and so definitely play it. Like, it's very powerful. I think you guys will enjoy it if you like BGs and if you like Jandis gameplay. So that's the one I'm like pretty excited about, because I played it. I'm like, wow, this feels like Jandis, but different. And that's always good. Wagtoggle was a snooze, like always, though.
Yep. I mean, it's one level above Jandis. Like, as in it doubles the amount of decisions you make compared to Jandis. And Jandis is already, like, hitting the top of how much you should be thinking on the turn. Like, that's why Jandis is, it's Jandis, right? It's a complicated kind of thing to be doing. You have a lot of choices, you have a lot of options. Hook Tusk opens your options up even more. And I don't think that's a good thing. Like, if you keep going in this direction, the game becomes even more, like, you don't have to go, like, in the opposite. Like, Cthulhu's in the exact opposite direction, right? It's actively limiting your choices compared to, like, something like no hero power hero. Like, say, like Patchwork. Cthulhu actively limits what you can do. And by a lot, because you're 2 mana down, which is even worse than Wagtoggle, right? Although Wagtoggle forces you to diversify, which is a different thing, a different kind of limit. But this goes too far in the other direction. Okay. Anyway, I do find it interesting that this is now super powerful, because it was they had this exact hero power, right? But you didn't get to choose at all, and it was like not good, right? If I'm remembering this correctly.
Yeah, it went through different iterations. It went from costing nothing
Hmm.
to I believe costing one, and then it was like cost nothing, but you can't
Yeah.
pick, and then now it's cost nothing. You can pick from two.
Yeah. So when it was cost nothing, but you can't pick, this was not like it was a below median kind of hero. And now that you can pick between one of two, it's now top tier. I found that to be really interesting because it seems like a fairly minor adjustment, like not a buff that would send someone from below average to dominating the meta. Not like super OP dominating, but top tier. But it is. So I think this just goes to show you the power of adding one more choice into every single turn.
Choice is important, especially if you're doing it a lot and
Mm-hmm.
you are going to be using this a lot. Because it's the difference between like, okay, every time I play Hook Tusk, I get one extra triple, right? Or I get extra, let's say, +6/+6 worth of stats by turn 7, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like in some games, like both, like that's huge, right? Like we've shown that's huge. So yeah. And anyways, about BGs, like this is it's something. I have been playing BGs again just so I can get my legs underneath me, just so I can just acclimate myself to the gameplay. But what I'm really trying to do is prepare myself for the Quillbore update, which should be happening at the end of this month. And that should be a huge, huge, huge update that literally every single BG player is looking forward to. If you see BG content creators, like they are at the end of their ropes. I know RDU took like a month off to focus on his mental health, but also like he stated in his statement that it was partly because of lack of updates. I think Slissa is doing like a Smurf account. I think Wobbleweezy played Constructed. I heard this through the grapevine. Like this is scaring me. A lot of this is really scaring me here. But we desperately need the update. A lot of people are getting quite bored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean nothing's happened in Battlegrounds for a long time. But yeah, so that's it for us more or less. For this episode, it's been going on for a while. I think one important thing I want to mention, not important, one interesting thing is that this giant like update post to explain what happened in this patch originally put the arena changes as part of bug fixes. That was when it first came out. It was just like all the bug fixes, by the way, starts with fixed a bug. Fixed a bug where? And then they describe the bug. And then the two arena changes, which is that they pushed the button and then they removed all the watch posts out of the arena, was just part of that, just stuck in there. Now I'm on this website again, and they had updated this blog post. I guess they edited it, and the arena updates are in their own section right before bug fixes and improvement. No images or anything, but they finally recognized arena as a game mode rather than a bug. Thought that was an interesting Freudian slip on the update when it first came out last week. I don't know when this change actually got made. I haven't looked at this since Tuesday. But yeah, I also want to give some shout outs to our Patreons. Thank you guys so much for helping keep the light on the Lightforge. Our top patrons for the month of April are Nordoge, RV Night Train, Eric L, Yin, 15 Gold Cringe, Aaron LS, REG, Dan F, Doug A, Karova, 4 p.m. brand new. Thank you guys so much.
All right, we've gone on long enough. I think that's it. And next week, hopefully, we'll have news about the big patch.
Yeah, I mean, do they announce it actually for the Quillbore for Battleground stuff? I've always like in my memory, I've always thought they just dropped it. You know, like they announce it and like a day later they drop it.
What they have done, like the earliest they have done, is that they will announce it for like the next day, I believe,
Yeah,
or like the day of, or the
the day of or the next day, right?
Yeah,
like 24
yeah.
hours at
They've
most.
never done something where like it drops and no one had any previous kind of like knowledge. Yeah, they don't do that. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for us. We'll see you here next week. Until then, this is ADWCTA.
Merps, see you guys.